he should walk in there and say, Joe, remember that text I sent you several weeks ago requesting a trade? Forget about it. I'm back.
Okay.
All right, and here's why I'm back, Joe. Because you believe.
Say that.
All right? You gave me a max contract when I was going to miss the first full season of that max deal with an Achilles injury. You gave me a max extension when I only played 90 games over the last 2 years because you believed. And you know what, Joe? You know what these last several weeks have told me? These other teams don't believe. They don't believe like you do, Joe. Oh, you don't want to break up your core. I am a core. I'm Kevin freaking Durant. I'm a core. I'll make you a contender by myself. You don't want to give up young stars for me. They're not going to ever be what I am. And so, Joe,
that's true.
I am rocking with the Nets this year. I got a locked-in Kyrie Irving on one side. I got a chip on his shoulder, Ben Simmons on the other side. I got the bubble baller, T.J. Warren coming off the bench. The Australian assassin, Patty Mills, got my back. Joe, let's run it back and bring a title to Brooklyn. That's what he should say.
Okay. Wow. I mean, that was passionate. That's what.
Let's go.
I mean, this is weekends. I didn't know the show had entered into like
that's a mic drop. You got nothing
scenarios,
to say.
But I liked it.
You got nothing to say.
No, I liked it. The problem is all of the reasons for Kevin Durant to stay that you listed existed when he demanded the trade, except for one. The acquisition of, quote, bubble baller T.J. Warren. That's the only fact on the ground that has changed in the last 5.5 weeks, or 5 weeks, other than I guess you could say Durant being upset the rest of the league is not as eager to trade for him. However, I want to talk about, because I don't think Durant's going to retract his trade demand. I think Woj and Shams have made it very clear he has not moved 1 inch on that, so I don't know what the meeting's going to happen. My guess is what he's going to say to Joe Tsai is, I'm not bluffing. You need to take the best available offer because I don't want to play for the Nets anymore. But Wilds, I want to pull back the curtain just a bit because I want to read you a section from this article. Because when this got brought up in our morning meeting, because it's not from Woj or Shams, but it's from a longtime NBA writer, Steve Bulpett is I think how you pronounce his name. Some of us weren't as familiar with the guy. And Brew was like, no. Steve worked in Boston. No, Steve, this is a good basketball journalist. He's just not working for the major outlets at the moment. Said, okay. Like, so Brew's got a relationship with the guy who wrote the story. I want to read you some quotes at the end of this story from one of Steve's sources and tell me if it reminds you of anyone. Quote, I wouldn't trade him. The hell with it. He signed the deal. The hell with it, right? I don't see KD being a hardline guy. If they can't get a deal done, he's just going to say bleep it, and he'll play hard like he always does. If Brooklyn wants to be good now, the fastest way is KD and Kyrie and Simmons playing together. With anything else, you're pretty much scrambling. So here's my question to you, Wilds. Do you think Brew was Steve's second source?
Don't even say it.
Do you think Brew was? Do you think Brew was like? Let me tell you. Let me tell you right now. let me tell you what they should do.
That sounds like
because
Jerry West to me. That sounds like Jerry West to me, or one of the great executives in the league. That's who that sounds like to me.
But what I will tell you, all joking aside, Wilds. I obviously vehemently disagree with Brew about where this is ending. But what that quote does tell you is there are people in the NBA, because that was a front office executive who told him that. It's obviously just an anonymous front office executive. There are people in the NBA who see this situation like Brew does. That the Nets should say, not doing it. Now, I don't think that's tenable. But clearly, since that quote could have been from Chris Broussard and instead it was from a front office executive, there are people that think that the Nets should just hold the line and KD will fold. That KD's not going to no-show, KD's not going to sit in, sit out, that stuff. He'll show up and play, and therefore they shouldn't trade him.
Okay, I totally buy that. It makes sense. I also agree that KD is not wired to sit out the season. But the question I have for you is this, Brew. Obviously, he'll play hard. But don't you think that an unhappy KD, a KD who has expressed that he doesn't want to be there, could not go the extra mile? Like, there was an article that was trending on Twitter. It's called Quiet Quitting Your Job, where you do your job, but you just don't do the extra project. You don't, like, go to, like, hey, there's cake in the conference room. Like, I'm not going to get cake in the conference room. So, like, Royce O'Neal, when he got signed with the Nets, said Patty Mills reached out to him, and I think he talked to Ben, but there was no reference to talking to KD. So do you feel like, yeah, he'll play. Yeah, he'll show up. Yeah, he's there for media day. But the tiny things that it takes to become a championship team, he might just not have, the energy for. He's not all in.
Right.
He's 92%
I hear you. Well, I hear you, and that's legit. And look, I don't know. I think he should say what I said. He should say, look, let's run it back. I don't know what he's going to say. I think we will get clarity, hopefully, after this meeting, because he'll either say, as Nick said, look, I still want to be traded, so let's get this done. I'm not going to be happy if I'm not. Or he's going to say, like I said, let's run it back. We should get clarity. I think if the Nets don't trade him, though, without a retraction, I think they want to try to convince him, like, if he comes back and if Kyrie's locked in and if Ben is playing and he's playing well, I think the Nets feel like maybe that will win him over. All right, because we've seen, look, there's no place outside of Golden State or Boston, and neither of those deals may happen, that he could go and definitively have a better chance of winning than he has right now in Brooklyn. And so I think they feel like, look, let's bring him back. They know he's a guy that's moody. All right, he can feel different ways on different days. So I think if they bring him back, Nick, it is with a sense of we'll eventually convince KD. The atmosphere, once the season gets going, once we look pretty good, we'll convince him to at least give it one more shot this year.
And that, to me, is our fundamental disagreement. I think the only hope they have of having a successful season with Kevin Durant involved is if Kevin Durant retracts his trade demand. Where you and I fundamentally disagree is in your hypothetical next year net scenarios where you lay out the things that would have to happen for them to compete for a championship. So much of it is removing on not only from the vaccine issues of last year, but all, for lack of a better term, of the terrible vibes of last year, of Harden quitting and Kyrie being in and out and the general unhappiness of the team. I do not think that if you go into this year where your best player is adamant, I don't want to be here, you have any chance of a successful year. I don't think Kyrie will be on the behavior you're talking about if Kevin Durant's unhappy. I don't think Ben Simmons is going to react to that situation well. I don't think Nash is going to be able to corral it. I think their only hope of having a successful year with Durant is if Durant isn't there, under protest. I think if Kevin Durant is playing under protest, the season is over before it begins. That's the fundamental disagreement there, Jenna.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.